Okay, so I've got here some scrap pieces of 240 grade sandpaper, and I just find that when you've been using them with a dark colour, they're only really good for throwing away once you've used them. So I'll use 240 for the frame surrounds where I had the paint on before, and then I'll use 500 for the little frames that we just made. So I've already made a start on here, and I'm just taking it back quite vigorously so that we're revealing that paint underneath, and then the second coat will give a better coverage, and then we just build it up until we've got a nice full rich colour with none of the paint underneath showing. And I'm just going to go in with a 500 on the frames, and this is just to smooth the paint. I don't really want to take it back as I did with the surrounds. I'm curling the sandpaper over there, but you can also put a piece of strip wood in there and use it like a small sanding block. So I've sanded front and back now, and I'm about to start the second coat. Now I'm not going to paint around the front edge of these larger frames because this is where my frames that I've already made will be stuck. So I just wanted to paint them blue so that there's no natural wood showing through. But I will be doing obviously all the window frames and the door frames and our sign plinth as well, on the top of there as well. So let's get going with coat number 2. I just wanted to say as well that I did actually use my soft brush just to get rid of all of the sanding dust before I started this second coat. It's important that you do that to make sure you're not sort of painting in any of the dust, as you won't get a nice coat. So that's the second coat done. Really pleased with how that's looking. It's given a really nice cover now. Still wet, so that's why it looks a little bit patchy in places. I think that plinth looks really good. Doors too. Definitely going to need a third coat and maybe one after that, but we'll see what the coverage looks like. The first coat of paint I did on the doors is now completely dry, so I'm going to use my 500 grade sandpaper to sand these down, and then I'll apply the second coat. So that's the second coat of paint on the doors. Again, it's still wet, so will look a little bit patchy. But where I had those sort of glue marks before, let me just zoom in. This second coat has done a really good job of covering those. Now I will need to do a third coat, which I'll do once this has completely dried. But that has given a really good coverage this time, and the same as well with the shop door. There was that glue mark. I talked about how I must have just spilt it on there, and that has almost covered that now. So a little bit of sanding, and then your second coat should cover a lot of the marks, and then a third coat will give you a really nice coverage. So I now want to get back and do the third coat on the frontage. And again, that's done the same thing. The second coat has almost covered those white marks and the third coat should completely cover them. So I'm not going to sand again. I'm just going to do the third coat directly on top of the second coat. I was just actually trying that on there. I think that is beginning to look really nice now. And I really want to get that third coat done so that we can start putting the brick paper on. I can't wait to see how that looks. The third coat is now on, and I don't know if you can even pick this up on camera, but the third coat really does make the difference. So after the first coat has dried, give it a really hard sand back, then do a second coat. Once that's dried, apply your third coat, and even if there's quite a sort of bad paint job underneath, you will find that the third coat really does give a good coverage. Now I don't know if I'll do a fourth yet until this has dried, and it might just be that I need to touch it up again in places if there's still any sort of paint showing through from underneath, but while it's still wet like this, it's looking really good. And then once the paint's done, we'll apply that coat of varnish again. And I'll do the same with the doors as well. I'm going to do a third coat on those. They're actually behind me on the floor at the moment, drying. And the window surround there, I'd missed a bit along the sides. There was still some wood showing along the side. I keep meaning to do it every time I get the paint out, but I just remembered to do it, so that's why that's on there. And that's drying as well. So just lots of painting today really, and it's now 10 to 4, so I'll probably be coming back to it in the morning. But another thing I've actually been thinking about is what we're going to do with this roof. Now I am going to keep it now. It does need to be cleaned, and I hadn't cleaned it because I wasn't planning on keeping it. But I think I may look for some embossed tile paper, so the same as the brick paper that I'm using for the walls. I'll see if there's a roof tile paper like that, and we'll get some nice dark grey tiles. And then this part of the chimney obviously I'll cover with the embossed brick paper. It's coming off nice and easily already. And then this piece I'll paint dark grey. I've got some lovely pitch black paint it's called, which is a lovely sort of dark charcoal grey. And then I thought as well I'll do that with the steps here. I was going to put tiles on, but I think I said it to you before, because they'll obviously make the step higher than the door entryway. I don't think that's going to work, so it would have looked nice, but I think I'll just paint these steps in that really lovely dark charcoal grey. The same with that one. And then we'll have that plinth that we're going to use at the front, which will have our flower pots on it, or our plant pots on it. I'll do in a coordinating grey, or we'll perhaps get some tiles to put on there. You know, like some stone, flagstone tiles, something like that. But it's just, I'm saying all this because it's just, I'm sure you get this as well, when you're sort of painting and doing things like that, your mind just starts whirring, doesn't it, of ideas. And that's why I've got my little pad and pen at the side of me there, and every time something pops into my head I just jot it down. So that's the next thing I'm going to look for, is the roof paper and some sort of stone for the sort of front plinth, where we'll have a little outside display. So I had wanted to get onto that brick paper today, but then I'm always planning far too much. I'm also working on a tutorial for YouTube, so I've been painting that. That's the bed that's going to go in my doll's house bedroom. So I'm working on that at the moment as well, in between this. I've still got to do the window frames at the back of this, so I'll turn that over now and do that. So I've just done that third coat on the back there, and I just wanted to point out that my little sample pot has just run out. So that is the first pot, and these aren't ever full, they're only about sort of halfway full. It's 50 millilitres. So that's done really well. That's done all of the 3 coats of blue on the front and on my window frames, one there, one on the tray, and 2 coats on the doors as well. So that really did last, and I've got another 4 of those, so I'm going to have more than enough. But I just thought that would be a good way to give you an idea of how much, how many of those pots you're going to need for your project, which I think is always handy. I always end up buying too much, but then I'd rather have extra in stock than running out, if you know what I mean. But I was quite pleased that that one pot has done all of that. Right, I'm going to put the door safely to dry now. So I'm pretty happy now with the coverage on the window frames and the door surrounds. But I am going to do a 3rd coat on each of the doors, and that's just because there's some areas where it hasn't covered as well, and where I haven't sort of got into all the little nooks and crannies. So I'm going to go around this time and make sure that everything is completely covered. So I've just opened up my next tub of paint. So that's the 3rd coat now done, and I'm really pleased with the coverage now. Obviously I'll have to see what it's like when it's dry, but at the moment that looks really good. And when you've done that, don't forget to go around with your dry brush. So just wipe your brush off on a piece of kitchen towel and then use it to go into all the sort of little nooks and crannies, and that will make sure that there's no congealed paint in any of the corners or anything. It's really important you do that when you're painting something with mouldings on like this. So I'm now going to put these to one side to dry, and then I want to bring the roof part over onto the table and give that a good clean. So you'll know from the first episode, and I think I spoke about this earlier as well, that originally I didn't really like this roof because I didn't think it looked tall enough. But since Kathleen sent that link over to the actual shop, and I've seen how it's meant to look with that lip going across the front here, I sort of understand now how it's meant to look. And actually in our nearby town there are those sort of old buildings which are now shops, sort of with flats above, and they have these sort of low roofs with that sort of almost like a little brick wall going along the front. So I do actually now want to keep it. Now, just in passing, I started picking the brick paper off of the chimney stack, but it's actually, at one side, it's quite loose. So I'm wondering now if I might be able to remove that, and that would make the roof a lot easier to then add the tile paper, which I've ordered this morning, by the way. I've ordered some, similar to the brick paper, that embossed tile paper in a dark grey. So hopefully that will be here soon. So I sort of feel nervous as I say it, but I want to try and remove this chimney stack. So the front area, you can probably see there, is slightly lifting, and it is only glued on. So I've had a look inside and there's no nails or anything. So I'm sort of pulling at it to try and loosen it. Although this back bit seems, I wonder if there's, no, there wouldn't be nails underneath, would there? So I've got the screwdriver here, and I'm going to just really carefully try and ease it off. I don't want to damage the chimney actually, or the roof. It's actually sort of starting to pull away that top part. You know what, even as I'm doing this, I'm thinking I probably shouldn't be doing this. So maybe I should just leave it. What do you think? I wish you could answer me. Yeah, because it's really solid on that other side. Even if I could pry that front bit off, I think this might do some damage to the roof. So I think I'll leave it. It will be a little bit more difficult to paper around, but we could even put a little bit of lead flash in or something around the join, just to neaten it up if we need to. But it looks as though this was actually papered, this part, and then stuck on, because the paper is actually tucked underneath as well. Oh, that's a shame, but never mind. I don't want to damage the roof. I'd be really upset if I pulled it all apart and it couldn't go back together properly, so let's just leave it. So I've got here again some warm water in my spray bottle, and I've just put the tiniest little bit of washing up liquid in there, and that's more for cleaning the roof, but I am going to also use it to remove that last little bit of brick paper. And the first bit of brick paper I just sort of picked off as I was passing one day. I just can't resist if I see sort of like a little fleck of paper hanging off. I have to have a pick. So let's get that nice and soaked. And then, what have I got? Use my little flathead chisel, see if we can get that off yet. That's actually nearly all gone now. Yes, I've got some nice dark grey embossed tiles coming. I only ordered it today and it's streets ahead, so they normally take about a week to 10 days to get to me. But I'll see how I'm going with this episode, and hopefully they'll arrive before I sort of close this episode off, because I want to get a little bit more done in this episode. And I've also reordered the transformer for the lighting, because they've been out of stock of that for the last couple of times, and I ordered some more of those swivel lights. So now I'll have, let me think, so now I'll have a swivel light in each sort of little entrance area, so the entrance hall and the landing. I've got 6, and I ordered another 2, so that's 2, and then we'll have 3 on each floor. So I thought we could go 1, 2, 3, and the same at the top. And then I've also ordered another little, remember I showed you that little LED lantern that we'll have outside the door? I also ordered a little little standing lantern, which has also got a little LED battery in the bottom, and I just thought then we could dot some more light about inside. So I've just ordered one for now, just to see what it's like, which I think I advised as well in the last episode. Because lights are quite expensive, don't just sort of go ordering all that you need. Always just have a look at them first, because you never know, you might not like them. I'm sure most places would accept returns, but I always like just to have a look first to make sure I'm pleased with them. Okay, so that's the paper gone. Just wipe that off there. I should probably be doing this outside because it's a lovely warm day again. I'll just stay in here for now. It's been a long day. Right, so I'll spray a bit more of that washing up liquid on. Let's get that into the centre of the table there. I'll just put my chisel away. I've really found that since I've decorated the craft room, I'm a lot tidier. I sort of put things away as I use them, whereas I used to just have a quick tidy up at the end of the day. But I do like keeping tidy as I go along. And what I'm going to use to clean this is this, it's like a roll of sort of J-cloth that Matt got for me, so I thought I might find it useful. Again, this is just, you know, dirt and water marks that have built up on the roof. It's actually quite a nice colour paint that they've used. Quite sort of like this, I don't know, burnt red sort of colour. Quite traditional doll's house colour. There's a little paintbrush hair down there. You see that? Actually, I think the bristle has actually gone, and that's just the mark that it's left. So we'll sand that flat. So we'll go at the other side as well. I hope this isn't boring for you, just watching me clean. So what I'll actually do at these ends and on this top of the chimney there is paint that in a dark grey black colour, so just plain. And I'm going to do the same with the shop steps as well. I think I may have said that earlier as well. The trouble is, because I've now been recording this episode probably for a couple of weeks, although it's all edited so it seems like it's all within a few hours, it is actually over quite a long period of time, so I forget what I've said sometimes, so I'm sorry if I keep repeating myself. Just fast forward me if I get boring, I don't mind. Okay, so that's given that a good clean. I'll get rid of that piece of cloth and then I'll just wipe that down with some kitchen towel. And I'm really looking forward to applying the varnish to the shop windows and doors. I think that's going to make a really big difference. And I'm also looking forward to attaching that shop door handle. I think that's going to look really good against that blue. Other end as well. The wood does actually feel a little bit damp. But that's nice and clean now, ready for the paper. Just noticed a little bit of dirt at that end. Just wipe that off. And obviously it'll be covered, but it's just so you've got a nice surface that the paper's going to stick to. And I'll perhaps even give this a bit of a sand as well. But for now, I'm going to leave that to dry. See, it's just sort of started soaking through to the wood there. So I'm going to pop that in a sunny patch. Actually, I'll put it on the window ledge, I think. Just stand that up there. I'll clean up and then we can bring the shop front back onto the desk and start the varnishing. So I've got my Rustin's Quick Dry Varnish again, the clear satin. And again, I'm just going to put a couple of spoonfuls into this little spare pot. And again, that's just because when you're using a dark colour you'll contaminate the liquid, but actually with any colour it's probably a good idea to dispense into another pot, and then you're not going to sort of contaminate what's in the tin. Oops, and because that lid, just put my thumb in there, because that lid wasn't fitting back on properly, I just put a piece of cling film over the top and then put the lid on. So I will do that again in a moment, but I'll just prop that on there for now. Stand that over there. So that was just 2 large teaspoons full that went in there, and then I can add a bit more if I need to, but don't put too much in because then obviously you can't tip that back in your pot either. And one thing I noticed, do you remember I just touched up a little bit of untouched paint at the side of this frame, and then where I've done that, let's get the camera in the right angle, I've gone over the varnish, so you can just see that little patch just there, and that's just enamel paint where I've gone over the top of the varnish. So do look out for little sort of smudges like that, because that will be noticeable when this is fixed in place. So I just want to start by going over that again. I just actually thought I should have probably done the steps, painted the steps before I started the clear varnish. So I'll just do these top 3 windows and then I can do the steps, and then I'll come back to the other bits. But let's just get the first coat on the top windows here. And straight away, as soon as that goes on, it just looks so nice. Make sure that you get along the edges of each piece of frame, as you'll have some dull bits in there. And I'm just concentrating on the front of the window frames for now, and then once this coat has dried we'll go and do the backs of the windows. Obviously we want that door to look nice when it's open. You can see it's got that slight sheen coming already. So I'll carry on with these windows and then I'll get that dark grey paint out and we'll do the steps. So it turned out I didn't actually have any of the Farrow and Ball off black left, but I have got a tin of pitch black, and then I've just added to that the tiniest amount of this Whistler grey, which is a lovely pale grey, and that's made this nice sort of dark charcoal grey, which is a really similar colour to the off black that I was looking for. So let me get the door back over here and we'll start with the steps. So I'm not going to do any masking up here, but I'm just going to be super careful. And I'm not going to sand either because that's a darker colour going over that blue. So I'm just letting the edge of the brush work along the inside of the lip of the door frame there. It doesn't matter about these sides because they're going to be covered. This will definitely need 2 or 3 coats. And I'm just supporting the door at the top. Easier to get to if it's standing up. Okay, so that can be left to dry. And I just want to bring the roof back in now. And I'm going to do the top of the chimney stack and then also the sides of the roof. And also today, I forgot to say, I ordered a couple of chimney pots, and I ordered some square and some round, just because the book didn't actually give the sizes. But coming back and looking at this now, there is quite a bit of space up there. I've probably got 30mm across, so 1.25 inches. So I think I'll have plenty of room, so it'll just be a question of choosing which ones I like the best. And I'm going to be papering the wooden part of this chimney stack. But what I am going to do is just do a line of this grey around the join there. And that way we won't be able to see any natural wood showing through underneath that paper. I'm just going along the edges again, so there'll be no red showing through. Again, this is where a primer would come in really handy. You get a much better first coat finish. But like I said before, you can just apply more coat and you will still get a good finish. I've just had a thought that maybe this should be in brick. I think it actually should be brick rather than grey to match the roof slates. I think what I'll do is I'll paint the other end as well, just to keep things even. But I think this probably should be in brick. And I may even just leave this sort of ridge bit in the off black, in the charcoal grey, and have the brick paper on this inside. So this isn't a waste, but the second coat I'll just do on that bit. I don't know what I was thinking there. I should have probably thought about that a little bit better. I was thinking because it was separate, I think. It wasn't actually part of the walls, but obviously when it's in situ it will look as though it's just a continuation of the wall below. So yeah, this should be brick. But what I did want to do is just do around these inside edges. I'm just making sure that chimney's not sticking to the tablecloth there. Bring that around a little bit more so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to do the inside edges just to cover the natural wood. So it's coming up to 4:30 in the afternoon now, and I'll be stopping at 5 because I'm off to take Woody for a walk. I'll take the camera actually and get a little bit of footage. I know some of you have said you like seeing Woody, but I am going to be able to spend a whole day in my craft room tomorrow, and at the same time I'm working on the skirting and coving in my doll's house bedroom. So I'll have a go at that as well. I've also got a bed, double bed I'm making for the bedroom, and that will be a YouTube project, and that's on the go as well. And I also want to get started on the next monthly tutorial for the channel. I don't know if you saw what happened with the little kitchen unit. The video actually ended up getting corrupted, so I had to share the one that was for next month. So I was ahead for a little while there and then It's all sort of gone backwards again, but I'll make a start on the next one. And I think it's going to be another request. One of our little Bitsers has asked for a barrister's bookcase, and I hadn't actually heard of them until she mentioned it. And it's like it's like a normal bookcase, but it's sort of got glass doors that come down over the top to cover up the books and obviously keep the very expensive books safe and free of dust. And the doors would actually sort of slot down and then slide in, but we agreed that that would be a little bit technical, so we're just going to do sort of lift up doors. So I hope that's something you'll be interested in. Okay, so that's the first coat on the roof part then. Yeah, I should have thought about those ends. I don't really know what I was thinking, but they will be the brick paper. So I'll do another coat on here tomorrow. So when I haven't finished a pot, my clear varnish here and my paint, I just cover it over with a bit of cling film or saran wrap, and that will just help it to last overnight. It doesn't last forever, and especially if you keep it in a hot place, it will still dry up even through the cling film, but it will certainly let it sit for sort of overnight, so you can still use it the next day. So I've just come in this morning and really cracked on with a few bits, so let me show you what I've done. I began with a coat of paint on the top of the chimney there, and actually turned the roof upside down so I could really get underneath there, so there's no wood showing at all. And then I've just done another coat on these ends, and just on these very sort of gable ends here, because this will be brick. When I've sort of had to think about it overnight, that will obviously be brick, even though it's going to be separated from the wall beneath. That would have been brick, so we'll be doing that in the brick paper. And then I've given the doors a coat of varnish, and that's been drying for about half an hour now. And then I've also finished varnishing the front. So I did the windows yesterday. I've done the sort of name plinth along there, and then the door frames. These are obviously going to be covered, so I didn't do those, but I did do inside where we'll have our window display. And I also did 2 more coats of the dark grey paint on the steps, and I varnished those as well. And I also did some of the charcoal grey around the top here. So I did this sort of top bit, and then I thought, well, this will also be visible, this sort of little inside bit, when the roof is in place. In fact, I can put that in because it's all dry now. So I've just masked around the edge there, just because I want to paint this bit. Just put that down. Even though that's going to be hidden, I'll probably give that a coat of paint as well, really just to sort of seal it, and so that it's finished off, and that will just be in a neutral cream colour. So let me just slot the roof back in. Like that. So you can see there, when the roof is in place, you can still see this little sort of side plinth, and round the back as well. So have a think about what can be seen when pieces are in place. And then I just want to move this front door, because I've just spotted down here near the hinge, that's peeling away a little bit there. There's a bit of a crack there. Let me just focus in, sort of all the way down that hinge, so it's sticking out a little bit on that side. So I'm going to get some glue in there, work some glue in with a cocktail stick, and then I'll put a clamp on that to really sort of pull it all back together. And then I've been having a look at some of these areas here. So that doesn't sit in, we know that, but I've sort of been pulling it about a little bit, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do it actually, but I obviously want that to come in towards the front so that it's flush with this piece here. So I'm going to have a play around with that. It may be a case of pulling out this panel if it comes out. I can't remember if I took that one out at the beginning or not, and then pulling that whole thing forward. See, the floor goes back, but then you've got those little gaps at either side, but is that better? Maybe that's how it's supposed to be. So I'll just have to have a think about that, and then all of these edges, once we've done all the wallpaper in, I'll paint all of these edges in that neutral cream, and that just makes it look a lot tidier when you're sort of looking at the finished piece. I haven't really sort of done anything with it at the moment. It's just, I think that's just a little bit of over painting, and part wood along here, part paint, so we'll get all those painted. And then I really want to get the doors in place today, and I'd like to start applying the brick paper to this front panel because I think that's going to make a real difference. And we'll get the acetate in as well. And again, it's like I said to you yesterday, because I've been filming this for a couple of weeks now, it feels like it's a really long episode, so I'll start editing and see how long it is, and then it may be a case that we can just close it off with just this front door being papered, and then we'll finish this off next time, and then we'll move inside, which I'm really looking forward to. Of course, I've got to wait for the roof tiles to come, and I've also ordered a letterbox, big brass doorknob and a knocker for the street door, and we've already got the handle for that door, so I've got to wait for those, and that's that Streets Ahead order, so that will probably be a week or so, but it doesn't sort of stop us from carrying on. It would have just been nice to get those fitted before we put the doors in place, but I'll still be able to do it with the door attached. So I now want to create a template for the brick paper, and I like to create a template when you've got lots of sort of cut out bits so that you get an exact fit. And to do that I just use plain paper, and I use this just because it's got nice straight edges. You can use scrap paper, but then you're forever sort of trimming it to make sure you've got really straight edges. And this is just the basics laser print paper from Tesco's, and it's just a couple of pounds for a ream. And I would just begin by sort of laying a piece along the edge like that, right along the edge of that window, and just creasing in around the edge of the door. And then put that piece there. And then I'll come along the top like this, always overlapping with the previous piece. And what you're doing is creating a sort of paper patchwork to make an exact template of the area that you want to cover. And then lay that piece across there. And then I've just got a bit of masking tape here, and then I would stick those together. Always making sure that they're perfectly lined up. Stick those there like that. And then just basically build it up. Put a piece down there. And then make sure you're using the straight edge of your paper. And then you just want to cut another little slice to go in there. And just keep going until you've covered the area that you want to cut the paper for. And there's lots of little bits in this as well. There is actually a really thin slither of yellow underneath the window frames. So with this method I'll be able to get a really thin piece of paper in there, and then when I remove it I'll have an exact cutout of the windows. So like that. And if you sort of look around and you've got any sort of slight gaps, like I had a little gap there just above the window ledge, and one down here at this side of the window, which can happen because you're sort of moving the template about, you can just use a piece of masking tape and stick that over the gap, and then that sort of works as part of the template. And then you can just carefully remove that. Like that, and there's our template for cutting out the brick paper. And I find that's just a really easy way of doing it. I've also cut templates for the other pieces that I want to apply the brick paper to. So inside of the doors there, and then around the street door as well, right there. And then I was just wondering whether I would paint along the edge of the door. Let me come over that side. Along this edge here, but I think what I'll do is I'll just cut the brick paper a little bit wider, and then I'll wrap that around, because even sort of using cream paint or even the black would still be quite noticeable when this door is in place, and you'll sort of have brick paper on the side walls and then a line and then brick again. So I will wrap the brick paper around the edges. So have a think about how you want to do that as well. Okay, so my paper isn't as wide as the shop front, so I'm going to have to do it in two parts. And it's got this sort of cut out edge here, so that you can join the bricks together, which makes a more sort of seamless joint. So I want to do the joint so that it's, if I actually show you on the shop, so that it's in this area here, so in between those two windows. And I'm just thinking there, because I've had a thought before about maybe having some sort of plaque there with the shop name on, or like a sort of advertisement board, you know, sofas, home furnishings, or soft furnishings, all that sort of thing. So we may do that there. So if the join's there, at least we'll be able to cover a little bit of that. So the thickness of the door is 10mm, or the depth. So I'm going to leave 4 bricks above, and 2 bricks measure 10mm. So that way I'll have enough to wrap around, and then I can trim the rest off. So I want to come to about there, which is roughly in the centre of that area. The other thing to think about is which way around your template goes. So this is obviously the front facing upwards, so I also want my brick paper facing upwards. And I'm only saying it because I've done it in the past where I've turned the brick paper face down to cut it from the back, and then I've just put the template on face upwards. So obviously then you're going to be back to front, so always have a think about that before you make that first cut as well. So I've got a new blade in my knife, and I'm going to use my rule to cut along the lines. And I'm also going to leave probably a sort of full brick and a half at the other side, and that will then wrap around that other edge of the door. So let me put the camera down and then I can actually start cutting. So the only line I need to get perfectly straight is this one along the bottom here, because then that will be my fold over, and that will be the fold over. And that actually runs nicely along a line of grout between the bricks. So I'll just line my ruler up there and cut along there. I'll go to about there. Like that. And then I can come down there, and I'm just cutting again down a line of grout. Okay, so we get that piece out of the way, put that down there, and then to cut out the window, I'm actually going to fix the template to the paper, again using my masking tape, but I'm going to stick that on the inside, so the masking tape will only be stuck to the piece of brick paper that I want to get rid of. Even though it's low tack, I'm still worried it might pull a little bit of the brick paper away. So just always stick it on the inside. You can just cut over it when you're cutting. Put a bit up there as well. And it's nice that the actual window cutout is lining up really nicely with the grout. It's all going to look square. A little bit along that bottom edge as well. Like that. Move in a little bit. I'll start along the top there. And I just turn my rule around because the side that I use most with the millimetre measurements on is actually starting to round off on this rule. And I have been using it for quite a few years, so after years of sort of rubbing your knife alongside, it can start to round off, so always just look out for that. And you can check that by lining it up on your the lines on your cutting mat. Okay, so I want to come along this bottom edge now. Make sure you're holding onto the rule really firmly. I'm just going to freehand those little side pieces like that. There as well. And then let's come back in with the rule. I've really been looking forward to getting the paper attached. This is going to make a really big difference. On the final cut, this should then come free. And if it doesn't, don't pull it, but make sure you go back in and cut again. Probably just haven't gone all the way through. Corner there as well. Okay, so let's go and try that in place. That looks really good around that window, doesn't it? I love the colour, the blue against the brickwork. Now I had to trim a tiny slither from that piece that goes underneath the window there, and it also wasn't fitting correctly over here, so I trimmed a little tiny corner off above the sort of window ledge bit here, and I took a little bit too much off. But don't worry if you do that, because what I've done is then cut a piece of the brick paper to match the colour that's missing, and then you would just stick that on behind. So just cut a tiny little square here, and I can't get hold of, so I'll stick that on. I can't do it. I'll stick that on above that window ledge, and then once this sheet is in place you won't be able to see that there's any gap in there. But now I want to measure up to join on to this edge here, and then continue along there. But so far so good. So to line up for your next cut, take the next piece of paper and feed those bricks together, and look how nicely that joins by doing it that way rather than just cutting a straight line. Really press them together, and then when we've actually glued this into place, we'll really press down on those seams so that we get a really sort of seamless join there. So they're butted up against each other there. And then bring your template back in and line up the window cutout. And then you know you're in the right place. Just lining that up along that other side so that it's running with that line of grout as it did on this first piece. Like that. And then what I'm actually going to do is stick the windows down at this stage before I start cutting. What's my other scissors? And then that will also hold it in the right place. Yeah, so we're running along that nice line of grout along there. A little bit on that thin line as well. And then make the cut. So I'm just now move that over a bit. So I'm actually on the cutting mat. I'll start along there. Again, I'm going to go sort of brick and a half over at the end. So I've got something to tuck around the edge of the door. So let's get rid of that piece again. And then I can cut out the windows. I'll start over here. Little stubborn bit in the corner there. And this one. Okay, I'll just start along that bottom edge, that little thin bit. And I'm just cutting it straight, and I'm just looking by eye, because I did just free cut that little tiny strip to go under there, so it wasn't a straight edge at all. Remove the template. Oops. Right, got a little bit of paper stuck there. It's annoying, but let's get it in place and then we may be able to patch something in there. So the original piece I cut for that side somehow got something stuck to it there and it pulled some of the brick away, and I don't think I'd be able to repair that, and because it's in such a prominent place that would have just irritated me, so I recut that part like that. So I now want to get this back on the desk and glue these pieces into place, and then we can work at folding around the corners and that top edge. Okay, so I'm going to attach the paper now, and I've just stuck a little tiny bit down there in that corner, and then I also made the same mistake there. I just cut a little bit too much away above the window ledge there, so I've stuck a tiny bit there as well, and that will hide those gaps. So I'm going to apply the glue directly to the wood. And then use a spreader to spread that out. And I'm just using my Gorilla Wood glue again. And make sure you spread it right along the sort of edges of the windows and everything, otherwise the paper will stick up. Okay, so I'm going to bring the first piece of paper in, get it stuck down at this end first. And this is a nice thick paper, so it doesn't tend to wrinkle. And then, just because I was having trouble getting glue into that little gap, I'm just going to put a bit on the back of this little strip, which I can then feed in underneath that window ledge. Just make sure that's all sticking down and sticking down flat. I'll get rid of that excess glue in a moment. Okay, so now spread this bit out. And then what I want to do is apply glue separately to these little sort of sticking out brick parts. And that's just because I can't get in to spread the glue inside the bits that are already glued down. And this is where we want to create that sort of really seamless join between the bricks. And again, I'm just going to apply a little bit along that really thin piece of paper there that goes underneath the window ledge. Okay, so I want to get this bit into position first, or this side rather. And really press those together. And they're joining together quite nicely actually. We don't want to see any yellow from underneath. So really press those down and then concentrate on the rest. It's looking really nice. Keep pressing these joins together. I just want to get into that gap, push that paper down in there, same in that one. So that sun shining on it is really helping it to dry, and I think that looks really nice. I think because I know the join is there, my eye keeps going to it, but I think if you didn't know, then you wouldn't pick that up. You can't really tell, can you? That's quite nice. So what you can do now is start creasing in the edges of the paper, and then we can trim these off and actually stick them around the side of the door. So use your fingers to make a nice crease along the sort of front edge, and then fold it around and make a crease along the back edge as well. And then we can then cut along that crease along the back edge. Actually, it might be easier if I turn it around to actually get to that. Make sure you're cutting along the right crease. Need to go a little bit further in there. Like that. And then do the same around the top, so you're creasing in along the front edge and then the back. And then you can actually snip out that corner. So I want to go to there, right to the corner along that top edge, and then cut down there like that. And then that will fold over like that. We can trim any excess off. So I'm now going to glue this down along this side. It's quite difficult to get to. And as I was doing this, I just realised I'm going to have to cut a piece of paper just to go along that edge there, because there won't be any brick paper obviously at the edge of the sign part. So glue that down. Crease it along, and then do the same at the other end, so crease it in around that back bit as well. And then trim off the back bit, so fold that in. And then we want to cut away that corner, so right down to the corner like that. And then cut in as well. That will then glue down, and then we can fold that piece over. Okay, so I'll get that glued into place. So that's that top piece of paper now all glued down. So I've gone around the sides and along the top edge there. And that gives a really nice, neat finish. So I now want to get on with that bottom section. So I've cut the remaining pieces, and at each side of each piece I've left a little bit of an overlap, and here near the window frames that will glue down behind those. It's just to keep the edges a lot neater, so I've just left a really thin bit to glue down behind the window frames on each piece, and the same there, and again I've left that flap so that we can wrap it around the edges, and again done that on each side. So I'll go ahead and glue these down. So I fitted the paper on the bottom section as well, and it all went fairly easily up until this last bit, and I cut the piece that came around the edge of the door here too short. So I was sort of a couple of mil short there, so that was annoying, so I had to recut. And as I was doing it, I leaned on this part of the window and that snapped off as well, so I had to glue that back into place. And I now just want to show you the shop front with the doors and window frames in place. And I think that's looking really good so far. Really pleased with that. Now, I've reluctantly got to leave this project for today to work on something else. So it's Wednesday today, Wednesday lunchtime. So hopefully it won't be too long before I can get back to this. And I'm going to edit the episode so far just so I can see how long it is, because I've been filming now for a few weeks and it feels like it's going to be a really long one. But I'm really pleased with how that looks so far. I hope you love it as well. And I'm also going to have to order some more brick paper. I've got a couple of sheets left, but I still need to do the sides, which will take a couple of sheets because it's obviously higher than the height of a sheet. And then we'll need to do the back as well. And I'm really looking forward to getting that tile paper because that's going to make a real difference. That will really finish off the overall look. Okay, so I've got to leave it there for today, and I'll hopefully be back with you before too long. Okay, so that's it for this episode. I had wanted to get a little bit more done on the front of the shop, but already I've started editing this episode and it's over 2 hours long, and I've split it into 2 parts, just really to make it a bit quicker to upload to the page. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I don't know about you, but I'm really looking forward to getting on with the shop. So I'll continue that from after this episode and start recording for the next episode, and I'll again get as much done as I can, and hopefully before long we'll be moving to the inside of the shop. So again, thank you so much for being here. Your support really is appreciated. I'd love to know what you think about how the project is coming along so far. And as always, I like to hear any tips and advice that you may have, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!